Yeah, you remember, if you were tuning in yesterday, when we signed off the show, Jen Psaki, the White House press secretary, was about to start her first meeting with her communications team. Whoa, I got that wrong. Sorry. I meant the White House press corps. I get those two confused, especially after last night. So let's take a look at a few of these tough questions that she got asked.
Talk a little bit just about the kind of the preparations for getting the White House ready and safe for the new president. It's been reported that you did $500,000 worth of deep cleaning. Could you talk about the measures that you took to ensure that the president is safe?
And then could you just give us some color about what it was like for him going into the Oval Office? He's been waiting for this for so long. What was his reaction?
The president pledged today to repair alliances. Has he planned his first foreign trip yet?
Well, we're only 7 hours in here. You're ready for the foreign trip. I'm ready too.
On a lighter note, will he keep Donald Trump's Air Force One color scheme change?
This is such a good question. I have not had the opportunity to dig into that today, given the number of executive actions, orders, the inauguration, a few things happening. I will venture to get you an answer on that, and maybe we can talk about it in here tomorrow.
Oh, I mean, I'm surprised she just didn't break down there. I mean, those were some tough questions. I mean, cleaning, that's a tough one. What color is Air Force One going to be? I mean, that's another doozy. She really came with her A game yesterday, and the press corps, man, they did not disappoint.
They didn't disappoint, Sean. You know, I couldn't help but notice that your first briefing, it looked a little bit different.
You think?
Is it your intention to always tell the truth from that podium, and will you pledge never to knowingly say something that is not factual?
And today, when he met with the business leaders, he had mentioned that the tax rate would drop to somewhere between 15 to 20%. Is he moving the goalpost there in any way?
Do you believe that you have the mandate to be able to force through what you had talked about, replacing portions of Obamacare?
So why is this executive order anything more than symbolic? And
what concrete promises is he making? We haven't heard a lot about what that policy is going to look like.
It's day one.
Yeah, but you've had a lot of time to make those promises.
I know, but...
Wow. Very similar.
Quite the contrast. Yeah. Well, you know what, America? Get ready, because that's what you're going to see for the next 4 years. It's going to be a repeat of that. But in all fairness, there were a few legitimate questions that came up, including how President Biden was reaching out to foreign leaders and the Iran nuclear deal. I don't know that any of them would call tough questions, but they were real. I mean, she talked about COVID relief, and there was a question about schools. But Jen wasn't asked about a bunch of things. And what she wasn't asked about was almost as important as what she was asked about. I mean, she wasn't asked a single question about immigration. The president is proposing 12 million people get citizenship, and no one in the press corps thought that was an issue. He didn't get asked about jobs that might be going away from the Keystone Pipeline. That's something that was in that executive action stack that she talked about. That didn't come up. She got asked about the president's Catholic faith and his position on abortion. She was asked about this thing called the Hyde Amendment and the Mexico City policy. Both of those have to do with taxpayer dollars funding abortion. And instead of answering the question, this is what she said.
I will just take the opportunity to remind all of you that he is a devout Catholic and somebody who attends church regularly. He started his day attending church with his family this morning, but I don't have anything more for you on that.
So just to be clear, the question was, what's the president going to do? Because he's hinted at repealing the Mexico City policy and the Hyde Amendment, which prohibit U.S. tax dollar funds from going towards the payment of abortion. And instead, she says he's a devout Catholic. Now, if I were to read that, I would say, well, okay, so he's going to implement or he's going to maintain the policies. But that's clearly not what she's doing there. She's trying to basically say, oh, he's a devout Catholic, but I'm not going to answer your question. Why not actually talk about the policy? Because that's what they're trying to do, hide the ball here. The bottom line, though, is that the media's job is to ask tough questions, to make news, create headlines. And instead, these headlines are the ones that came out of her first briefing. This is what the New York Times, the paper of record, the Gray Lady, this is what it said. Ms. Psaki dodged questions she didn't want to answer and engaged on the ones that she did. The takeaway, a calm, boring press briefing wasn't necessarily a bad thing. BuzzFeed had a very similar story out there talking about how it was newsless, Lindsay, and they're celebrating it. I mean, this is their idea of like a good thing. Oh, guess what? It was really boring. We didn't have to do our job. There was no news. Their job is to make news, to ask the tough questions.
Yeah, that's right. They should be asking the tough questions. That's what we expect from the press. They definitely ask you the tough questions, and we want the same treatment for both administrations, for any administration. And you know, this isn't about Jen Psaki and the job that she did or didn't do. Actually, I think that she did a pretty good job. This is about the American journalism that we saw on display last night that was not good journalism because they didn't push back some of these silly questions. How did he feel when he walked into the Oval Office? You know, I think you could probably figure that out. Is he going to change the plane color? They should have pressed on tough questions like you mentioned, the Keystone Pipeline. Are we going to lose jobs from the border wall stopping? All these things that they failed to press on.
Yeah, and to your point, I just want to make it clear because I think you hit the nail on the head. When I was coming into the White House, Jen was communications director for Barack Obama. She was unbelievably kind and generous with her time to me and to my team to make sure that we had a great transition. And I'll be forever grateful for her for that. She's a kind person. I thought she did a good job yesterday. She did her job. It was the press corps that didn't do their job. And speaking of headlines, Lindsay, I got to read you this headline that came out of the Politico playbook today. This is literally what they said. Spicer update. Since we reported that Sean Spicer, the former Trump press secretary turned Newsmax host, has applied to be a member of the White House Correspondents Association, reaction has come mostly from the left. Eric Schultz, a senior advisor to Barack Obama, called it a, quote, terribly consequential decision pending before the WHCA that will, quote, be a major test if they prize truth over all else. Or will they reward the pioneer of using the White House podium for disinformation? Now, they went on to actually say on Wednesday, Spicer was spotted at Trump's farewell speech at Andrews Air Force Base, which is exactly the kind of event a WHCA member would cover. The problem, he was there as a guest to the president, not as a member of the press corps. That's a distinction that may matter to the WHCA. The WHCA, by the way, which we covered the other day, has just a few criteria. One, do you work for a news organization? Check, I do. Newsmax is. 2, do I have credentials from the White House? Check, I do. 3, do we cover the White House? Yes, we do, and we're doing it, continue to do it now. So guess what? The idea that I was at an event has nothing to do with this membership. It's still pending. They have refused to actually acknowledge it again. We'll see where this goes, but it's fascinating. The left, Obama's folks don't think it's a problem. Well, that's not what matters, Lindsay.
Yeah, it's interesting that now the association might put a ban on what you can and cannot go to, even if you were a guest, that you can't cover who was the president at the time of farewell ceremony. This is silly, Sean.
By the way, we actually used the material from that. I reported, you know, live in Newsmax at the time. We did. I mean, who are they to determine this? It's unbelievable. They can go do all of the crazy stuff that they do, all of their book parties and hang out with the Obama folks and the Biden folks and go to everybody's dinner. But if I actually go to an event invited by the president, well, we'll have to consider that in your membership application. Well, yes, of course. That'll be noted in your membership application, Mr. Spicer. Well,
you just watched Newsmax TV, America's fastest growing cable news channel, now in more than 70 million homes. You can get Newsmax TV on your cable system or check your cable guide. And if your system doesn't carry Newsmax, call them, tell them you want Newsmax TV, because we're real news for real people.